So welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with RokoM, Michelle. And so this week we're going to talk about the power of proximity. And while we would normally kick off with a quote, this actually stemmed from a book title by Michelle Warren. But it speaks to what Roko and I, the direction we want to go in with the power of proximity, because it can be taken a few different ways. So it's the power of proximity is moving beyond awareness to action. And so when I think of this, and I go back to, and I mentioned to you earlier, is I think about presence in coaching, right? And the quote that's in there from Malcolm, someone around presence is more than just being there. The power of proximity is more than just being in the area or close to people. There is some action required on our behalf for it to matter, for it to make a difference. And I think this quote speaks to the action piece of it, or at least the difference that can be made and the thinking around, so what do I need to do for myself as a leader to actually be able to take action for there to be power in being close or proximity? So that's where we start us.
Yeah. And you were on the same page with this, because awareness is great. It's where learning happens, self-reflection and how you can develop yourself. But if you don't take it beyond that self-awareness, then it serves nothing as it relates to a leadership's role in developing others, right? So the other part of it is it's the right action. So understanding when your internal biases may be hindering you from taking the right action as it relates to developing that other person. So being aware of those biases and then shifting your thinking or shifting your mindset so that you can see that person as something different, or let go of things that they might have made mistakes on so that you can develop them beyond that, who they are today.
Yeah, I'm gonna do another quote, and then I'm gonna piggyback on what you just said, because you just triggered another one that we had. It's proximity has taught me, and this is Bryan Stevenson, who, oh, by the way, this is the third thing that I think we're talking about around the power in the human experience, and those four elements, which was, I think, proximity, hope. Help me out here, Roko.
Oh my God, I can't.
Oh my God, here we go. It's like, what is the other one?
Proximity, just
being uncomfortable.
Proximity.
No, being uncomfortable.
Yes, being uncomfortable.
What was the other one? It will come to us.
It will come to us.
Bring it back.
Yes.
And if you're listening and you listen to the other one, you're probably yelling at the screen right now, or at least whatever you're listening to, going, people, this is what it is. So Bryan Stevenson. So Roko, don't Google.
I am. Okay. It's going to drive me crazy.
Proximity has taught me some basic and humbling truths, including this vital lesson. Each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. So I'm going to, the dots that connected for me when we were thinking about proximity is power, right? In this way, or the power of proximity, is a lot of times what happens is that we'll have an experience with an employee or with a situation, wherever it may be. Yes. And so we go in thinking, this is it, this is who they are. And here's the bias part of it, that it can never be anything different than what it was before or what it is today. And so I say that because I was coaching, in fact, two different leaders. I had this situation come up, and it was around PIPs, performance improvement plans. And there was a reluctance to engage in a performance improvement, a PIP, if you will, with an employee. And I said, what's getting in the way? And it was like, they didn't want to basically put the nail on the coffin with the employee. And I said, but here's the thing, you're looking at it the wrong way. And it's important for the employee to look at it a different way. The performance improvement plan, granted, if you've exhausted everything else in informal coaching or whatever it may be, is the very structured process that we're going to go through to help them get back on track. And I think that's what this power and proximity is get close enough to where you understand and actually understand the truth of what's going on. So you're in a position to help.
Yeah. Yeah, you prompted my thinking when we were going through our coaching program. There was a video of a gentleman he had a TED Talk that he was speaking at, and he says, "I'm more than my condition." He was a paraplegic, but he was basically saying, I'm not my disease. I'm not my condition. There's more to me than this, than what you see on the outside. And I think that speaks to what you're saying too with the pit. There's something underneath that we just need to uncover, be willing and to look at something more than what we just see at the surface. Something's getting in the way of that employee being their best self at work. So what is it?
Yeah.
And how can we help remove that thing that's getting in their way so that they can be their best self?
Yeah, it's so funny because when my kids were growing up, I hear them say it to other people. It's all about choices, right? And so Bryan Stevenson, when he was talking about inmates that he works with that are incarcerated, right? And so obviously there was a worse thing that they did that got them into the situation that they're in. But the power in it, right, is getting close enough to understand the backstory of whether it's an inmate, whether it's a performance issue with an employee, whether it's a process improvement issue you're having at work, right? Go there with openness, with curiosity to learn more and basically check judgment at the door. Because I think that's the power in proximity, is get close enough without preconceived ideas of what it is, because then you're never going to see it for what really is going on.
Yeah. And at the patient experience conference where Bryan Stevenson was speaking, it was in the tone too of, we're in healthcare, but this would apply to customers in any industry. Get to know your patients because they're more than what they come in with. Yeah, they might have come in with chest pain or a broken arm or whatever, but they're more than that. So learn who they are so that you can care for them in an individual way that's going to help them heal.
Well, and my brain just flashed to homeless people. So if it's if they're in the hospital, are you looking at stuff through the lens of, because of those situations, that's why you're here, which may or may not be true? Or it was interesting. This was decades ago. There was a DO that I worked with, a doctor, and he had this reputation that if you came into his office and you were a smoker, that was your problem. So it's almost like he couldn't help you if you still had that. Right. And I haven't thought of that in a million years. But the thing is if we come fully loaded with these misconceptions, right? Granted, smoking's bad, but that may not have caused, the inflammation that you've got going on. I mean, it may or may not have, but to put blinders on so that we can't see what the other possibilities are is a detriment to ourselves and the people that we engage with.
Yeah. That speaks to the part of the quote where it says you have to be open. You have to be open to see the whole picture and not just the thing that's on the surface or what's in front of you.
There's one more I have, and I have to read it because I didn't write it down. It is, some people think they are in community, but they are only in proximity. True community requires commitment and openness. It is a willingness to extend yourself to encounter and know the other. And so I'm going to, when I share that with you, and my thinking is, it's not about community, but the power in proximity can be the creation of community, right? Is that you have a connection then with somebody beyond the title they hold, the role that they're doing, the condition they may have found themselves in. To, Bryan Stevenson's point, they're an inmate. That doesn't define who they are for the rest of their life. They have a choice, and we have a choice to see and do something differently.
That's right. That's right. So as a leader whose role is to develop others, taking this into account, realizing that we have biases. So being aware of those biases and how it might be preventing us from developing others in a way that's meaningful. And then taking action to shift our mindset so that we're seeing that person in a different way, or getting to know them in a different way, a deeper way that will allow them to develop that person in a meaningful way.
I agree. I like this one. It's because it's different from another proximity is power, and stuff, but I think it's so important. So important. So what's 1 to 2 things you want people to walk away with?
I think it's the action piece, because we've talked in a lot of our podcasts about awareness and self-reflection, but it's that action piece of shifting our mindset or getting to know that person in a deeper way and taking action from that perspective, as opposed to just being aware and having the knowledge.
Yeah. And so here's where my brain went when you said action, because I agree. I'm sitting here as a bobblehead going, yeah. Is what does that action require and that mindset shift? And so I'm going to say yes, and is the action part doesn't have to be that I've taken steps to do whatever, but it could be the internal, like you were talking about. Open your brain. Recognize when you've already got preconceived ideas as to what it is and why it is. And set those aside for a minute, and then truly go in with an open mind and an open heart and curious to understand more, because I think that's the power in the proximity aspect of it, is that you can truly learn, like Paul Harvey used to say way back in the day, the rest of the story. So I appreciate this time. So this has been Leadership Soundbites with RokoM and Michele on the power of proximity, from awareness to action, which I love. So the action we want you to take after you're aware of this is like, share, subscribe.
There you go.
And give us more topics, because we love this. And then if you want to be a guest, message us. We'd love to have you on to unpack a topic. So until next time, thank you.
Bye.